the following are those of its participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers and the Six Talk Podcast Network. Also, the following contains mature material and mild language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
And here we go on this Friday evening, May the 1st, 2020. This is episode 18 of the Anime Roundtable version 2.0, the Six Talk era. A quick reminder that we're always up for hearing from both of our listeners. You can contact us old school on email, animeroundtable@gmail.com, and on Twitter and Instagram @animeroundtable. Of course, our badly out-of-date website is still there, animeroundtable.com, and now we're on Discord. Just enter Anime Roundtable in the search.
I'm sure we have like 5 people that listen to us.
I was going to say, Mike, what if I'd like to mail a letter? Which P.O. box should I send that to?
Send a message first. Send a tweet. Send a tweet. Mike Nicholas with you in our 6 Point studio in the Toronto West End. Strangely alone tonight for obvious reasons, unless you have lived under a rock the last few months. The others are here, but they're at home, which means that this podcast has finally stepped into the 2010s with its first virtual roundtable via video conference. We're actually doing this on Zoom tonight. And with that said, we're actually hoping to get Zoom bombed before this taping ends because it might be a top 5 highlight for this podcast's history. James Austin, Kevin Ng, Mohammed Shamarki, you've heard them already. Say hello again, guys. Oh, gee, thanks. Did we cut out already? Did the connection cut out already? That was fast.
No.
So we apologize in advance. We did try a test run and pre-production meeting last night, and we found out that Kevin was a little in and out. So once again, we do apologize in advance in case there are technical issues. They're likely to happen. As mentioned already, this is our very first online episode. But that said, this is maybe our best planned out episode in years. Certainly our best planned episode in the version 2 era. That said, here we are, a social distancing roundtable on Zoom. It's finally nice to do an episode via online, but of course the circumstances by which we are doing it is another story. And okay, I know we ended up looking fairly silly last episode back on March 11th in just about every aspect there, especially what's happened in the last few months. So first of all, I'm acknowledging that that hindsight's 2020. I think, James, I know you want to stay out of saying anything.
I'll just say I wasn't even there, so whatever you guys did, it's on you guys.
Looking back, maybe we came across as taking it lightly. Entirely possible. We looked like we were taking it lightly.
Well, a lot of people did.
That's the thing. My excuse is I just took what was considered proper thing to do at the time. What was considered the proper way we should be dealing with it, constantly washing our hands, making sure.
Obviously, we had certain information at the time, and it kind of ramped up very quickly and turned into something else entirely. Because remember, it only started in China in December and stuff like that, and then it was like a few months, and then it just kind of like wham, it hit us really in March, and it just like it was the end of that week, and then people were starting to get worried, and then Monday, it's like everything just started closing down right at March break.
That's sort of how it went. And then, here we are now. And here we are.
Now we're in a new normal.
As the cliche has been going. So we'll talk at length about how obviously, we can go on and on about how much the world has changed in this quote-unquote new normal. But obviously, for the purpose of this show, there's an anime component, and we'll talk a little bit more about that over the next little bit. And hopefully, now that we're starting to get our stride, at least in this in the isolation, maybe we can probably churn out a couple more episodes in a rather quicker time. Maybe it's a little bit of a surprise that it's taken us this long to come up with another episode. March 11th. It's been almost 2 months since their last regular episode, and then I did that little story a couple weeks ago. You guys have a quick reaction to that story? Have you, whoever's heard it? Have you? I mean, how many of you guys heard the on my mind? I did. None. Nobody.
I listened to it when you put it out, and it's, how do I put this? It was a very, I can't express this very well, but I just really liked how, it was very conversational, yet there was a tinge of seriousness to it, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I kind of like I like when you do those short form stories, so to speak. It's just, it's something a little offbeat, something that's not what we usually do, but it's nice.
Actually, I got a message from Senpai in the last hour because I informed him we were going to tape this podcast on video conference. So the first time we tried it online, and he just said, he was glad to hear that. That's what Senpai told me, and calls it I think I got to use I'm going to use the exact words in his message. Experimentation is good, especially now when there is a leveling of the field, he said to me. Senpai's aware that we are taping this evening, and by all accounts, he's still doing fine. But I thought that was a good time to tell the story, especially since he revealed that he had been that he had come down with COVID himself and was just recovering. So I thought it was a timely story. Okay, so enough about that. Senpai, what about each of you guys? How have you spent the last, how many weeks has it been now? How many?
40 weeks.
Huh?
Been over like a month and a half.
Half, yeah. I mean, by my count, it was
a little over a month.
A little over a month. It was like, I think
because it was March break it started, and then after that it just took off. So it's been a month and a half.
Yeah,
I didn't work from home until the 23rd.
Working from home.
All of you guys have been working from home, right?
Yeah, I started on the week of the 23rd, so I started later than most people in my company.
Mm-hmm. James?
Yeah, it all depends on what you're telecommuting, what the abilities are and stuff like that. It's like we started March break and stuff like that for us, but I can tell you we got there, but ours was, and the big thing for everyone is privacy concerns and getting it right. Mm-hmm. And it depends on what your business is, right? And I was on the front line seeing like how you want to see an economy shut down. I saw an economy shut down, and it was not pretty.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of scared people that first week. Our competitors weren't answering their phones, the big boys, but we're in the mid-size and probably the smaller ones than us. We were answering phones, and trust me, you were hearing a lot. Mm-hmm. But it's gotten better. Like I can tell you, I think we're seeing the sunlight. We're seeing more. Like I know people are saying, "Oh, we're going slow" and all this stuff, but I'm seeing some sunlight and stuff like that from what I'm hearing from people across the country that I'm talking to that are clients on the payroll and accounting side. And that's a good sign, hopefully.
Hopefully
the benefits and everything will help people out. You know what I mean? It's like we're just trying to keep people employed and get money into people. That's what we told them the first week. We said,
"Okay,
you got a refund. We got to get those people refunds."
Yeah, I get where that's going.
Yeah, Jake, I was going to say, Jake, what do you think about the government's response with all the funding they're giving out?
Are there more?
What do you think about the government's response with all the funding they're giving out?
Well, let's put it this way. Like, we were looking at the first week, and we were just shaking our heads in our office. And it wouldn't have mattered who was in office in the federal government. It would have mattered if it was NDP, Liberal, Conservative, Moose, Rhinos, whatever.
Greens.
They were they were losing their heads too, and they weren't getting it right. Like, they were making up as they went along. And so when we were explaining to people, we were saying, we have to take it day by day. We have to calm down. We're getting the information the same as you, and we all are in this together. That's the key thing.
That's one way.
And it was a long time to get to a lot of the subsidies, especially on the business thing. And the reason why it was important for the 75% and for the 10% to get those businesses the subsidy for their workers is we're in the gig economy, remember? And a lot of the workers are contract workers and stuff like that. So if they go off the payroll and stuff like that, they may not come back. And then in some industries, they were already treading water. They may not come back. So it was a little slow, but at least they got there, and they got there quicker than some other places and stuff like that. And there were people I know bickering about what people got, because remember, unemployment, they gave a bit more, so it was 55%, but other countries were giving more, and that's how it ended up. They added the CERB and stuff like that, which is the emergency benefit we've all been hearing about and stuff like that. And trying to wrangle all that over weeks has been interesting.
From your
At
standpoint.
least we're better now and stuff like that, but now we hear all the other different stories. It's like, oh, it's like this person doesn't qualify, and now they're massaging things. But
And
it takes
massaging
time to
things-
get these things right, and
fears of
that's government. You know what I mean? Like
fears of double dipping, etc. Mo, you've been working from home as well, right?
Yep, been here since the 16th.
Oh, since the 16th. Okay.
In March. I don't know, man. I don't know what to say. Just
Nothing else to really add.
I thought you were trying to help us out with the mental health angle.
You know what I was gonna say?
Because we all need that. We definitely needed that the first few weeks. At least the people I was talking to needed that.
For the uninformed, next week is Mental Health Week. And May is Mental Health Month. We have our big annual thing next week, so a lot of stress getting that out the door. But yeah, and radio interviews, it's just so much is happening.
This mental health month will be a little different from past ones, right? For obvious reasons.
You know, it's so funny. Every year we have a different theme per se. So this year's theme is social connection, and we picked our theme in January. The phrase is when someone says, "How are you doing?" and you respond with, "I'm fine." What "I'm fine" really means, and there's a whole thing about it and how we should be more connected and stuff. And then a pandemic happened. It was we were on the ball with that theme there, guys.
Yeah, fine is an initial for something not so flattering. I've heard once. I forgot what exactly it would have stood for. Okay, from my standpoint, and I know I'm probably surprisingly among anyone I've talked to at length, whether it's you guys, friends, and family, I'm almost in a minority because
Interesting.
Yeah, I've been temporarily laid off from work, but I'm also in a pretty I'm in a lucky position. Yes, I've been taking the benefits, so I've been getting benefits from the government since the 15th. That was since March 15th. That was the last time I worked, and I've had to tighten the belt in some respects, watch my spending. In some ways, that's been easy. In other ways, you've had to pick and choose. But I consider myself in a pretty good position compared to anyone else. So I'm not I don't feel I have a right to really complain about the situation for myself. But the only thing I would like right now is a haircut.
Same here.
That's
You know what?
That's the worst thing I could say.
For a haircut. I would feel for a haircut.
I know people who have been getting their hair cut on the sly.
Oh, yes. Well, that's another story altogether, right?
Why don't you just join me? I get mine cut every 2 or 3 times a year.
No, way to go. Way to
Hey,
go.
if I'm going to get a haircut, I'm going to get the most out of it.
But admittedly, I've been due for weeks, but I can wait. And strangely,
my bangs bother me.
Yeah, that's sort of where it is right now. And the sides, it's drooped over the ears. So, how do I put this? I've been okay. It hasn't been too hard for me. Haven't had a chance, obviously, to really visit family, but I've been in touch with them rather consistently throughout the last month and a half.
Have you found that in the beginning there was a lot of communicating and now there isn't?
It's sort of the opposite, actually. I wasn't in touch with some people, and then as time has gone, I've at least texted them a little more now. Various family members.
I remember
that's the case for me, anyway.
I remember when we first started, end of March, messaging someone, getting random messages people haven't talked to in years, right? Being all how are you doing? How are you holding up? And now it's radio silence, right? No, come on.
Well, once again, maybe it's the whole new normal thing, right?
True.
I mean, what's some of the stuff I've on a personal level I've done? I mean, here I am drinking a coffee right now. Yes, I'm here. I am drinking a coffee. You're seeing this in the video. I'm drinking a coffee. Yesterday, I made my first attempt to make the Dalgona coffee. You know, that whole...
Oh, how did it turn out?
It's strong. I will tell you that now. It's quite concentrated.
Is that because
the real
of Tiger
question,
King?
though, is...
Huh?
Oh, you go first, James.
James?
No, I was going to say, since you're saying that, it's like, have you been trying to make bread too, Mike? I hear everyone's like trying to make bread now and stuff like that.
My father did.
My father too.
And they're trying to make it without flour because everyone's had a run on flour, and we've never had a problem getting flour.
I will tell you this. Well, first of all, yeast seems to be the thing that's hard to find right now.
And yeast
flour,
is,
you might be
another
able
one.
to trip on it. A lot of places still have it sold out, but more often than not. But yeast seems to be the hard thing to find right now.
I can only speak for the Real Canadian Superstore near my house, but I will say that the smaller bags of flour are gone. If you want the biggest bags, they are still there.
Hey,
chances are you can see them in Costco as well.
Has
the
anyone
Costco lineups.
Like we never had problems with the big ones, but yeah, I guess it was.
Like as I said, my father's baked a popular Filipino style bread roll, and it was funny. Like this is the closest I've come to actually visiting my parents during that time. They would tell me would I like some, I can come pick some up, and then I go and I said sure, and all they would do is just leave it on the porch. I just go and pick it up. And then
I was going to say, like, you probably picked it up and then you waved at them as they waved at you out the door.
That's basically what it was, right? I'd leave, and there's things I had to return to them, and I had to leave it on the porch. Leave that on the porch. Basically, I was playing a trade, and then a wave. That's basically the in-person interactions I've had with my parents and my sisters during that time, who've basically done the same stuff. Anyway, for my father, and my father was always a good baker. It's just that this is the first time in years he's baked, and I don't ever recall him making bread rolls. But it was funny because the second batch he made a second batch. The recipe calls for it to be sprinkled with breadcrumbs, but they're supposed to be plain breadcrumbs. But he didn't have any. He had the Italian breadcrumbs, so they were like garlic parmesan seasoned, right? They turned out to be probably the best ones I've ever tasted, actually. But I'm not totally sure it's supposed to taste that way, but they tasted great. As for
cooking's all about experimentation, right, Mike? Like sometimes you find something and then it just works and it creates a variation on the recipe. We've done that before. It's like, well, we don't have that, so we can try something similar, and then it just works out.
That's what happened there. For myself, I have quite a bit of flour here, and I think my intention is to attempt to bake cookies for the first time within the next week. So I'll let you know how that goes next episode or something. Or maybe I'll just, or if you want, I'll drop off half a dozen on your porch. What else is there? Well, also, obviously, I've had more time on my hands. So I admit I've been watching and reading a little more. And I guess I'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. I don't think we'll get to it today. I will say, however, in the process, I have read four full novels. Just before we started, I finished up one light novel. I finished up volume 1 of Toradora, and watched a couple of things online, a couple of videos, some anime, some Japanese stuff, some other Asian stuff, strangely, and maybe not so surprising, some cooking shows, cooking competition shows on Netflix. But that's how I've been spending a lot of the time as well. And then obviously in the last week, we've been planning to come with this recording as well. And that, as I said, it's just been one of those, it's just been at times a blah time. And the days, strangely, over these 7 weeks, the weeks have gone faster now in a rather unsettling way.
So you guys believe it's May already?
Yeah, I have trouble believing it's May. I have trouble believing we went through April like this.
Like what happened to April?
That's it. Strangely, the shower, I think there wasn't the greatest amount of rain, but there was certainly a noticeable amount yesterday on the last day of April. So, I mean, have you guys dipped into any trying to catch up on any sort of watching, or is it because you guys are still working that you haven't really done that much? or you've been going through stuff maybe at a normal pace?
It's been marginally better for me. So I don't have the library to distract myself anymore, and Shonen Jump also took one extra break from releasing chapters because they were affected at one point. So I started reading my actual manga backlog for a change. So I'm set to finish Genshiken second season, and I'm trying to finish 2 Terra as well.
Okay.
Interesting
James?
differences there.
James?
Oh.
Maybe I should mention titles afterwards. I will briefly mention that. Go ahead. Sorry, James.
I've been working, so it's like crazy. But yeah, I found time to take that moment because it's always trying to find that moment.
Oh yeah.
As we were saying before. But even though like the streaming, a lot of them have been decimated. Well, summer's probably going to be even more decimated, and a lot of the people in Japan, the animators, all of them said that if this is having this season, next season is just like, how the heck are we going to create this, especially since they're under orders and stuff like that, and they don't have the telecommuting like a lot of we have in the West and stuff like that. Like you look, the best one I think of that one is the video game ratings boards. So PEGI and ESRB, they're fine. They can do their ratings and all that stuff. Supposedly Zero, the Japanese one, has been shut down for a month.
Really?
They can't do any ratings at all. And so that's going to affect all the video games in Japan being rated. So the ones that were ahead, but it's going to be months later that some of them might not get out on time, or they might have to figure out a way of how to rate them, because like Zero is doing no rating compared to the other two, because they're just at home doing, I guess, nothing, or doing something. I just don't know what, because they're shut down completely.
Oh, that reminds me.
Crazy.
I finished Professor Layton in the Miracle Mask today too, so that was one more thing off the backlog.
But yeah, no, thinking about it from streaming, from the new season, I'm watching Arte, which is, it's based off a manga, and it's a really interesting one about this female, she's like a noble, not high noble, but low noble in Florence, and she basically is she's going to become a journeyman, all this stuff, and become a painter and stuff like that, and that's not what women do in the Renaissance. She's supposed to get married and all this other stuff, and it's her journey, and it was based off isn't based off the real one, but influenced by this one woman painter that was in Italy during the Renaissance and stuff like that. And it'll be interesting because I read some of the manga, and it goes through Florence and her journey and her growth, and then it goes to Venice, and then it comes back. But it's a very beautiful manga, and the show so far has been great. It's similar to Kaoru Mori's works and stuff like that, like Bride's Tale or Emma or something like that. I was also watching the second season of Ascendance of the Bookworm and stuff like that, which is part 2. And that's good. They're rushing a bit because I think they're trying to get there, and it'll be interesting to see if they ever get part 3 or 4, which those novels are from J Novel and stuff like that, which is, I've been reading a bit on their platform of that one, Ascendance of the Bookworm. And then the other one I was watching, and this one was on Crunchyroll as well, was Sing Yesterday for Me, which was from Kei Tomei. And if you remember that one, that was from Lament of the Lambs. He was the one behind that as well.
I remember. Yeah,
this one, Sing for Me Yesterday is interesting because he started that before Lament of the Lambs. So he started that manga in 1997 and finished it, I think, 2015 or between 2013 and 2015, and now it's getting an anime. So it's a very different style. Like, it definitely feels older, even though they're obviously animating it now and stuff like that.
So James, it was one of those manga where they stopped for a while and then revisited it years later?
I don't know. Like, that one, I'm not sure if he was doing it while he was doing Lament of the Lambs and stuff like that, because you know how some of them, they'll do multiple things? Like, Lament of the Lambs was only 7 volumes, but I can't remember if he was still doing that one, because the Sing For Me one was never ever released in English. And so the only way to do it is through scanlation, unfortunately. So this is the first official release in English. I think it was released in French, in France and stuff like
You get
that.
all the good stuff in France.
But actually, it's funny thinking of that. I told you guys, the only other thing I did, and I still can't believe I got, was I've been playing around with my TurboGrafx Core Mini, which I got last month. And that was crazy because you can't get it. Well, it's Amazon exclusive. Konami's the one that released it. All the European and Amazon.com, they have December 31st. So that means who knows when it's coming out. But somehow, and they even said, well, because of Corona, we don't know what's going to happen. But somehow they got out PC Engine Mini out on Amazon Japan fine last month. And then for whatever reason, Amazon Japan was able to get Core Graphics Minis and TurboGrafx Minis, and they released it in April. So I got it early April for the Core Graphics Mini, which is the European version, which is the same as the TurboGrafx. I wanted like the feel of the PC Engine, so that's why I went with the Core Graphics.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it was a fun. It's a fun machine to have playing around with it.
I can't say I have.
And the crazy thing is, I told you is
about the
thinking about it in North America. In Canada, it was exclusive to Radio Shack back in the 90s.
Yes, it was.
A lot of us never had it because it was so expensive. It was exclusive to Radio Shack. And I was joking to someone, I said, Amazon Japan is like the Radio Shack of now or something like that. And the funny thing I told you as well is, how long does it take to get this from Amazon in Yokohama, Japan to here in the GTA of Toronto?
Yes,
and I think you guys were very surprised about how long it took.
Yeah, I remember.
And then the same thing for my extra turbo controller. It took the exact same amount of time. It took, well, technically, I think it would be 4 days, but it took 3 days because they were in the future when they sent it.
You're so geeking out with your video games right now. Mo, you kept up with anything? Like, have you been able to keep up? Have you watched anything of late of note? Related.
A nostalgic bend, I guess. Just watching old stuff from here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just, work's been a little bit busy, so just.
Yeah, I know. You guys have been working enough, so I think that's, I'm not like, if you haven't watched, you haven't watched. So can't win them all. But you guys are, as I said, you guys are at least working. So.
I really can't complain with my situation because in my case, I don't have to pay to commute anymore, so that's $200 saved a month now, and I don't.
It's the time too. Don't forget too.
And you don't really have any social obligations to go anywhere to have like $20 dinners or $15 dinners, so that helps too.
Yeah, that's how it feels for me as well. No obligations in that sense. So any money spent in that sense isn't gone. Maybe at worst maybe you're spending a little bit more on groceries, but that's about it.
Yeah, the extra money is just going going to investments.
How has your grocery budget been?
Anyway,
been a little higher.
Just quickly on video games though. Just as
it'll bounce back.
Yeah, it'll go. Just quickly on video games. I just remember you've been seeing like various companies, various systems. They've been offering free games also. Last week, I actually downloaded free on my PS4 free versions of the Uncharted Chronicles
and Journey.
Those were made, and that's sort of.
It was interesting because that's great for you and everyone who isn't on PS Plus, and you shouldn't feel ungrateful, but. It's kind of annoying that if you got it on PS Plus before, you can't get that free one to keep it forever. And if it had been on the Xbox ecosystem, I would have been able to do that because their ecosystem is better where it's like, okay, yeah, you had that free game, but say you want to support say you like the game and you want to support the developer and that team and whatever, you can buy it if you want forever. And some people do that when it's on sale. And PlayStation doesn't let you do that. Sony doesn't let you do that, which boggles the mind.
That's interesting.
I didn't realize that.
But both of those games were PS Plus games, and so basically we couldn't take advantage of that.
So if you have a present subscription,
but it's like at the end of the day, it's doesn't mean much to me, but I know some people probably got more worked up over it than they probably
Actually,
should, right?
it's sort of, for me personally, that was a chance to kind of come back to something that I missed out on. Because when I bought my PS4 some years back, I actually had a code to get the Uncharted Chronicles for free, but I kept forgetting about it, and then it expired on me.
The same thing.
So fine.
Those are the things with those codes, right? Or even those DLC codes, like they put in the thing.
Mind you,
like you got to remember to do.
I think I read the date wrong. I think because most of the time the format is usually as I know it is month, day, year, but I think they printed it out day, year, month.
That sounds.
So it ended
I
up.
always go day, month, year, but yeah, I guess that's the European
I think it was
version,
like
right?
yeah, it was. So I think it was like 10. So I thought it was. I think it expired on. Was it the on 10/9 10/9/2018 or something, which would have been October 9th, 2018. No, it was actually 9/10
September.
so which was like the 9th day of October or something like that.
I'm so glad I didn't have to deal with any of that bullshit, to be honest.
I mean, I wasn't mad. I mean, I wasn't playing too much at that point, so it wasn't. I never felt the loss at that point.
Because I, by and large, stopped playing video games. Like, how do I put this? Like, I used to be an avid gamer, but partway through when PS3 was out, like I more or less stopped playing on home consoles. Mostly was just playing on a Nintendo portable system. So I've had to deal with that stuff a lot less. And it's just the whole notion of like, oh, like I have to pay to play online, or I have to, I don't get to keep the games that I downloaded, and
I know.
It's just like I don't have to worry about that, and that's a godsend.
In that sense, yes. In that sense, I mean, I fell out of really playing video games in the middle of the PS3 era as well. I've only played a little bit on the 4. Part of me wonders why I bought it.
That's why I never bought a PS4.
But it's there, so I'm not gonna.
I've been fine with the PS4, but
okay.
I stuck with the
haven't
vanilla.
Given myself time to play it. I guess that's part of it. I've had all this time, but in the past I hadn't been. Put that down. Put that controller down, Mo. But that's just
Well, the thing I think of too is it's like you have all those people that they were like us. They have that vanilla PS4, but they started this generation again. They did that mid-cycle refresh and stuff like that, just like all the phone companies and everything like that. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. And they've like a lot of the games now they're doing like it's really pushes the base hardware and stuff like that. You really need the other one. I'm like, nah, I don't. No, but a lot of the ones I use, I don't worry because they're the Japanese.
It's strange. I mean, I bought both versions of the PS2. So I bought the mid-cycle version, the smaller one, and then PS3 went through 3 iterations, if you remember that.
Yep.
And I got it just at the end of the first iteration.
I got a slim. I usually wait. I usually wait for one refresh before I buy any system.
Okay.
Usually.
But I feel like this refresh was different. It's like, oh, it's not just a slimmer version where you're getting this extra stuff that you might need, like the Pro or something like that.
I don't know. I guess I'm.
When I got my PS4, it was a bundle with Spider-Man. So
anyway,
and there you go.
And there you go with me for. I bought that just about a year before the refresh there. So anyway.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with that Series X and the PS5 and stuff like that, because they still claim they're going to try and get it out this year, and they haven't talked about price. And I think a lot of them said they might not even break even, and they might try to push it. But I think some of them, they're just going to say it's going to be like PS3 all over again. They're going to say, we're going for the higher price and stuff like that because we'll still sell just enough and stuff like that, even with the economy as is.
And that was before all this happened. So on that note, just moving on. That's before the virus.
Switch refresh in the next year, please.
Well, I don't know if they'll even get that because you heard about Nintendo, right? Like they won't even be able to do a June Direct, which would have been their E3 thing because they're having issues on the telecommuting and all that stuff in Japan. Like all the other sectors of Nintendo Europe and the guys in Redmond, Washington, all of them are fine. They can telecommunicate all this stuff. But the Kyoto one, the big impetus, the brain center, just is kind of like they're figuring it out and stuff like that. And that's crazy. With it's not just the smaller and the mid-size, which is the biggest problem, but even some bigger corporations in Japan are having issues.
Okay.
And it's like you can't solve a telecommuting problem in 3 weeks or whatever, change a culture in 3 weeks.
That's the thing.
Anyway.
It's largely the
let's-
culture change and the fact that they're probably all like in their 70s.
Well, that's sort of how Japan can.
And they talk about it's like they want to do it face to face. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's sort of
that's the most dangerous thing to do now.
It's weird. Like Japan can come across as so technological in some aspects, but it's so traditional in others.
But they're stuck
Like,
in the 90s and stuff like that, using fax machines.
We're just getting out of the aughts ourselves, you know. Okay, so let's move on a little bit, and let's stay in Japan because we just like. We want to, as we tape this episode, I want to talk just briefly about how the virus has started to affect the anime world. I mean, we hear enough about how it's affected the other parts of the world, but we wondered, obviously, with this being more of an anime show, sort of these days, we wonder how much it's affected the things that that people who listen and do this show would have been interested in. The Asian pop culture stuff, certainly the anime and manga industry. How it's affected that. We know about delays in debuts and broadcasts, movie delays. Those go without saying. Obviously, there's been some human tolls as well. And I wondered a little bit about, and it has the virus taken away anybody of note in the anime industry and the Asian pop culture industry? And I can only think of, as of last night, I could only think of one, the Japanese actress Kumiko Okai, who was one of many people to play the Japanese officer Jenny in Pokemon, among other things. But I know that she was in a Ghibli film. I'd have to look that up just quickly. What other stuff she had done. She was in Dog of Flanders and The Cat Returns as well. But the sad part about Miss Okai, who died at the age of 63, I believe last week, April 23rd. Okay, so April 23rd. She had some underlying conditions because I think she had also started to be treated for breast cancer. So she kind of had a tough to start when she got the virus. She had one of those underlying conditions, I suppose.
It's odd. There's been a bunch of people dying from cancer this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, that's where most of the deaths in the industry have been in the last little while. It's been more based on cancers, other underlying or other health issues. That's the one that has come to mind the most. Then you brought up. Then just before we started recording, you mentioned Shu Wada, the father of Gen Urobuchi, right? The famous who's a famous novelist. But Wada was quite good. Was an accomplished actor in his own right, and he died of complications to the virus at the age of 81. And that was when? No, that was on the same date, that's April 23rd. So I don't know. You are a little bit gobsmacked, a little bit. I mean, you hear about stories about other people in various entertainment sectors who have passed away. Too numerous to think of right now.
See, in terms of this community, so to speak, we haven't had any. This is not to disrespect the people who have passed on, but
easy there, Kevin.
But I think more people. You would hear more people expressing sadness or dismay or freaking out if, say, like, if Nana Mizuki died or if Masashi Kishimoto died. That's it. It's like we haven't had anyone of names, right? We haven't had highly notable people pass on yet. So it's just interesting to see the lack of, like, it's been reported, but then you don't really hear people going, oh man, like, I'm so devastated that X person has passed away.
Well, it's sometimes there's a degree of emotional attachments, right?
Of course.
So maybe that lacks in some cases. I mean, this is still sucks to hear about Wada and Okai. So actually, in the links we'll put up the news report for Kumiko Okai. Actually, there's a next shark article, but within it was a YouTube video, and actually, if which was the newscast, the TBS Ncast news broadcast in the that afternoon. To NHK World Watchers, actually, you might want to take note of who was at the anchor desk that day for that report. It's Chiaki Horan, the former host of Imagination, which got canceled this past month, and the co-host of Songs of Tokyo. She's also a former Japanese Power Ranger, for better choice of words, I guess. She started in a Sentai show when she was younger. She's a former actress, but now she's a TV presenter and news anchor. She's broadcasters, and generally speaking, a lot of them tend to be freelancers, so they end up doing work on different networks. She's done English language programming on NHK World, but a lot of her Japanese language work is actually with TBS in Tokyo. And she's one of the co-anchors of an afternoon newscast, and you'll see that report actually in the link we'll put up a bit later on, which I found kind of interesting because she always like Imagination was a show that profiled Japanese pop culture, video games, anime, manga, and it was a very light show. And then here she is doing a pretty serious news report and interview.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see that in the video. But that's what we know thus far, and obviously the whole virus is a ongoing thing, so I get the feeling there could be still more to come in that sense.
There will be more to come.
Yeah, well, it's hard. You don't like to say that out. I guess I hold a discomfort saying that out loud.
Well, not necessarily, and I don't necessarily mean people dying, but
well, yeah, people will. That's the sad part.
100%. I feel like no one's like Kevin said, no one's super famous died. Like when Tom Hanks first got it, was like, oh my god, Tom's fine. But like everyone's recovering. Like we need major deaths.
Yeah, but some don't, and it gets like it's still the roll of a dice in many ways too.
I mean, if people really don't want to get it, I mean, bleach is a good option, right?
Oh god.
Oh dear.
I mean, I heard a very smart person say that if you inject...
Well, yeah, I know he's smart. He said so himself. Oh, okay. Well, from Japan, but let's come back to Toronto because it's had. Oh, you want to say something, Kevin?
No, I'm just reacting to.
Wait, the smart guy.
I'm just reacting to he who shall not be named.
Yeah, the smart guy. Okay. Well, let's come back to Toronto for a second, because obviously the virus has had its issues here too. It's made its mark in its own way, having laid waste or forced the cancellations of, well, really the conventions everywhere. But it forced the cancellations of Anime North, IFF, and TCAF over the last month. And obviously, we mentioned we were set to do Anime North later this month, but that's not going to happen, obviously. And we'll reserve that for next year. If you were waiting for IFF Toronto International Fan Fest, that got delayed, pushed to next year. They will honor any tickets that have already been bought. Although you can ask for a refund until, I believe, late October if you want.
And I believe most conventions are doing that and stuff like that. But a lot of conventions are kind of like, it helps us more actually if you don't request the refund and you keep it till next year and stuff like that. And I think a fair amount of the local people will be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's one of those. I think for what it's worth, IFF said, please defer because it'll keep our cash flow going, something to that effect.
It's hard to say on that one, because that one, then you wonder, because those are the for-profit ones, but then you have the ones like Otakon, Anime Boston, and then Anime North and stuff like that, where it's not for profit. As Anime North said, they do have that slush fund they squirrel away, but that's going to take a dent and stuff like that, because there's some costs that they can't get back and stuff like that.
Without a doubt.
So,
and then TCAF, which I know got canceled, but I don't know too much more beyond that. Is there anything you want to say concerning any of the Toronto cancellations to this point? Because we haven't heard anything from Fan Expo, have we?
Yeah, we haven't heard anything. The only thing we heard about was their March break one and stuff like that. Because that was the one that used to be an anime con. Now it's like Comic Con.
Their mid cycle con. So I guess for lack of a better choice of words,
I think they were hopeful, but I don't think that hope is gonna, because the problem is they'll probably allow things, but they won't be able to do it at the size they are now. There's no way they can do it at the size. They're going to have to, if they allow it at the convention center, they're going to have to set limits on attendance. They're going to have to cap it, and it's going to be a hard cap, and it's probably going to be way lower than what they're used to. You know what I mean? Because they can't.
And it could anchor quite a number of people who won't be able to
and
get
even
in.
even then, would you really want to subject yourself to that? Like,
we're talking what, September, like late August? Like, why would you?
Like we're going to the assumption Fan Expo will happen roughly around the same, roughly on time, right?
Because, that's just before Labor Day and stuff like that. But for a lot of those things, if they do allow events, they're going to be definitely smaller. They're going to allow smaller events, or you're going to have caps. And we know this because we've talked about sporting events before, and they're definitely going to be in empty stadiums and all that stuff if they're even allowed. And then once they get to the next level, they'll space people out. Like it'll be like a quarter of the people allowed, and then if they're lucky, they'll get to full capacity way later on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're going to put you're going to put yourself in greater risk by going to these events, even if they're allowed.
Why risk?
You don't know who may or may not have COVID-19.
We don't know how this is about to evolve. That's a big thing.
Oh, there's going to be waves and stuff like that. It's a lot different than anything we've dealt with. Like we went through SARS, we went through other things. That's probably why it started out the way it did. But now it's become something completely different, as we said at the very beginning of the show and stuff like that. And we're going to be going through waves of this. And all we can do is pack our patience and just wake up and see what happens.
Right. I mean, as I said, it's not over, and who knows? There could be another wave to come.
I'm just waiting for the concerts that I'm going to go to be canceled.
Need the money?
Wouldn't mind it, but because in the fall, Scandal's coming and Flow is coming in as well.
No, I don't keep up as the way I used to, but I recognize those names.
So did they have them on sale through Ticketmaster or something like that? Because sometimes
not through Ticketmaster directly. One of them is not through Ticketmaster for sure. One of them maybe. I don't recall, but we'll see. It might be MRG actually. I think they were both MRG events. I could be wrong though. At least one of them though.
Okay.
So I'm wondering what will happen to my tickets in that sense, because they're a smaller fish, so to speak.
Who knows? Sometimes
as they say, a lot of them have been understanding them. That was the thing, funny enough, they were talking about the cons, and you heard all the people, it's like, oh, why aren't they canceling, or why isn't this stuff happening, and stuff like that. And the problem is, all these conventions and stuff like that, they couldn't do it because they were under all these contracts and stuff like that. And even though these contracts may have an act of God clause and all this other stuff, you got to go through the process, because if one person says no or whatever, they could be liable. They could be sued, and then you may never have that convention again.
Yeah. No, you gotta just be thorough.
So you gotta dot those I's and cross those T's, unfortunately, and that's why some of them took time.
That cliche. Well, I mean, I guess we can talk a little bit more about the cancellations of all the anime, of the great anime social calendar here in Toronto. Especially since maybe they have their backup plans. On that note, they may have to take it online.
Well, most of them, I think, have been canceled in general, because, what was it, AX, Otakon, all the major ones have been canceled too, so it's everywhere.
Yep. So yeah, it's
As
happened.
you said, it's a new world, right?
It's a new world, but sometimes the alternatives could be to go online. On that note, let's take the break. And then when we get back, let's talk about one convention that has going on this weekend that is going online. We'll talk a little bit about Anime Lockdown after the break. It's the Anime Roundtable on the Six Talk Podcast Network. And the podcast now continues from our 6 Point studio and a bunch of other places around the GTA. Nicholas, Austin, Ing, and Shamarky in conversation with you online via video conference and on the Six Talk Podcast Network, official podcast Anime North, which isn't happening this year.
Sad combo.
Places of gathering, conventions, movie theaters, various meetings, they're trying to come up with more conferencing alternatives like this one. And this weekend, actually ongoing as we're talking right now, we're seeing the first, at least the first noteworthy attempt that I'm aware of, probably the first noteworthy attempt to do an online anime convention. A little thing called Anime Lockdown has been ongoing. That started this morning and will run until Sunday afternoon, May 3rd. By looking at the website, it looked like it was something that was cobbled together within a month. We've been keeping up with it. It's a free convention. There'll be two well-known voice actors, Veronica Taylor and Kyle Herbert, will be two of the guests of honor. They'll be doing Q&As tomorrow. But we have been in and out listening to the convention as it's happened today. As I said, this is a unique situation. And I think this is the first attempt at any sort of convention in the COVID era, any sort of anime convention in the COVID era. And this may serve as a bit of a blueprint as to how something like this will go for the rest of this summer. But I know each of you were in and out of listening to things today at Anime Lockdown. Do you guys have any impressions before I give my own? Because I was actually... I didn't think bad of it.
I only caught a couple of panels. So I caught the history of Shonen Jump panel, which was okay because the person who did that panel, I can tell, probably isn't too used to doing panels, and I could
sense that in the tone of voice.
And there's also just the technological barriers that you have to deal with, and when it comes to Excel, like with PowerPoint or with Twitch or whatever, because with that one he spent a lot of time talking about the early 70s stuff and 80s and 90s, and then you can tell he was starting to get worried about time because he then would skip random titles. So I feel like
he went through trying to do the entire catalog.
Yes, and truth be told, a lot of it was basically just running through a lot of Shonen Jump's catalog, and I would have appreciated more real discussion or pointing out certain other things about the series rather than just saying, oh yeah, this series is about this. Next. Okay, and this series is about this. Next.
I think I know where you were going with that. I think you would have appreciated like a context as to what it meant in terms of the history and evolution of shonen manga. Like, was this was the first manga to explore the idea of blank.
He did do a little bit of that. So I believe he did mention like he mentioned the Sentai stuff, and he mentioned a couple of manga back in the 80s did have a format. It was like, oh yeah, this is where this format of shonen manga kind of originated from. So the one that I recall was that he brought up Ringi Kakuro from the 80s, and he said that how that was one of the formats of how other series do it now, where you have like progressively stronger enemies that you have to defeat.
Mm-hmm.
So he correlated One Piece with Ringi Kakuro, so that was interesting. But when you're skipping, when you feel like you're in a rush and you're skipping Yu-Gi-Oh,
Yu-Gi-Oh is kind of, yeah, I mean, when you think about it, there's a
But
slight-
Yu-Gi-Oh is a
Yu-Gi-Oh
card
is one of
battling
the
game.
biggest titles in the 90s. Like yes, it's important to bring up Yu Yu Hakusho and Rurouni Kenshin, but you're gonna skip Yu-Gi-Oh. You're gonna bring up some other obscure 90s title that no one's fucking heard about, except for maybe 2 people. But then you're gonna skip over Yu-Gi-Oh. Like,
well, let's take
this
Yu-Gi-Oh.
is putting aside my bias of me like Yu-Gi-Oh. It's
okay,
like,
but you
and
said
then he
you
had to
actually-
skip a lot of important titles in the mid 2000s too because of lack of time.
True. Well, let me go back to Yu-Gi-Oh
So,
for a second because you made me think of this.
If anything,
little fact.
if-
Finish your thought
well,
because
okay,
because I'm actually in agreement.
okay, you go.
but I want to
You
bring
go
up my
ahead.
thought. My thought on terms of Yu-Gi-Oh was that was
Mhm.
like that was 4Kids' follow-up to the success of Pokemon here in North America because they started focusing on the anime for that. Yu-Gi-Oh was meant to be the next big title for them after Pokemon.
And it
when
was.
when they presented it here, when it came over here. So there's a certain, so Yu-Gi-Oh is sort of has a certain significance to it when it comes to the industry in North America as well. Okay, sorry, finish your thought.
Oh, I was just saying how you look at, if you look at the general like sense of what was popular amongst fans, he's talked about the 70s too much because there's maybe only 2 or 3 titles from the 70s people would even give any shit about. Like, yes, you can talk about the very first few titles from the 60s, and yes, you talk about the 80s and the 70s, but you have to. But I think what he should have kept in mind was that I need to gloss over the 70s and 80s. Like, I don't bring up every single title from the 80s. Only bring up the most important ones, which he did. But like he probably brought up 10 other titles where people by and large, like, unless you're like an 80s fan, like, or a 90s fan, like, you won't know that Ninku is a Shonen Jump title, like, or you won't know that Ayatsuri Sakon was a Shonen Jump title, which, you know what, those are kind of interesting, but you have to think about who your audience is, and you have to think about, okay, I need to bring up X amount of titles. Or you could, because if anything, you can do a very brief list of, oh yeah, these were the titles from the 80s and these were of note.
Well, yeah,
and then
as
just
I said,
move
that's
on.
sort of like I was looking for benchmarks, like something that would chart the benchmarks.
And
but I understood.
And the vast majority of the benchmarks are the 90s and beyond.
Well, at least according to him, right?
Yeah, well, just in general, because a lot of the 80s and 90s benchmark titles were brought up.
So I'm guessing City Hunter and all those ones like from Hojo and that.
City Hunter, Cat's Eye, Fist of the North Star, Saint Seiya, Ringi Kakuro was worthy of bringing up too.
Flame of Recca?
Flame of Recca was Shonen Sunday. That was not
Shonen
Jump.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you mentioned it.
But that would have been tough to do in an hour, I think.
It was because I think Ayatsuri Sakon is by that creator. I think that was it. Okay. I think that was where that correlation is. I vaguely remember hearing about that too, Mo.
All right. That's your thought?
I guess. Like, it's just...
Something just didn't click.
They need to bring more... You had to... I feel like the stuff that really needed to have the cultural significance emphasized should have happened more. So, like, you should have talked more about One Piece. You should have talked more about maybe even
elaboration
the North Star or Saint Seiya.
Yeah, an elaboration on
Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Naruto.
You talk about Bleach for like half a second.
That's true.
That was where the audio cut out for me, so I didn't hear the first half of the 2000s.
Okay. Where to go next? That's your thought, though? That's your thought?
So far, yeah. That's about all I can think of at the moment.
All right. Mo, do you have a thought concern after nearing the end of day one there?
I like the right stuff
lockdown?
panel.
You did like the Right Stuff panel?
Right Stuff panel was good.
Now we got to see the inside of Right Stuff, which we never.
I think you guys, this is where we get interest. It gets interested, where we really start to talk.
Also,
about
I like to know like how Sean Kleckner is allowed to just go around on a forklift doing wheelies.
No, I was so hoping for a YouTube moment there. I didn't get it.
I'm sure.
Well, then you saw them dropping the thing, and then you're just thinking,
huh? Sorry?
You're thinking you should have done more. Like instead of just dropping it from the top of the warehouse, they should have someone like drive over it, like throw it in the water.
Oh, you know those would not have lasted in those extreme circumstances. And yeah, I don't know what their health and safety team would have thought otherwise too.
That's true. Well, they wouldn't be in. I guess they'd be shut down just as quickly like everybody else. Okay, so.
But hey, at least if we work there on Fridays, we get popcorn.
How much
in our own bag?
What do you want to say? What stuck out to you from the Right Stuff panel, Mo? Anything? Because I know they did make a few announcements.
I mean, the warehouse was good. The Gundam announcements are good.
The Gundam, yeah, they went Gundam wild there. And
Sunrise basically let them run whole on Gundam. So Sunrise is producing their distributing.
Mm-hmm. I forgot about that where Gundam sits now. So
other than Iron-Blooded Orphans,
really talked a lot about Gundam. They talked about Galaxy Angel, AA plus S.
Oh yeah, because
most of it was stuff we were. Yeah, we weren't. I wasn't surprised by those announcements because it was just a continuation of ones they've had before and stuff like that. And just saying, well, we're working on Emma. We're trying to get there on it, but it's taking time.
Or we can start to reveal a little bit.
Seed is coming.
Huh?
It's like,
yes.
Guys, like Seed's coming. Just wait.
And
2 dubs.
I'll be honest.
What was it? It was builders and what else?
No.
It was mostly like builder stuff or.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a lot of
that
and out. And it must be noted once again, the Right Stuff guys were actually at Right Stuff. Like, I mean, this is a virtual convention. This was a virtual convention, so presumably, though, the guys who were speaking at the Right Stuff panel were actually doing Right Stuff because they said we're going to show you this announcement because we're going to go update the website right now to let you know the pre-orders for it are now open. Right?
Yeah, they've done that before. I know at the physical things and stuff like that, and being able to update. But yeah,
update the website during the actual panel. I thought that's a little.
But they definitely gave us a more insight and stuff like that, and probably were able to prepare those videos and stuff like that in a way that many of us haven't seen before, because usually they're only at so many conventions.
Right. And I think that was a key thing. They were at the home office to do all that. So if there was something that they had to tweak, it was easy to tweak at the last second.
It was a nice touch.
It was really, I thought, a really nice touch. But they also acknowledged one other thing at the very beginning of the panel. They saw the head count, like they saw the watch count in the Twitch streams, and yes, it must be noted that lockdown was taking place on three or four different platforms. So to use the metaphor of a convention venue, the Twitch and YouTube were the panel rooms, or the panel room, and Discord was essentially the rest of the hotel. So, which were basically chat boards for where the virtual artist alley and dealer room were.
Oh.
That's sort of how.
Yeah, they were talking about that, and it was interesting. So I know you kind of went in there, so I was intrigued by that because they did mention that throughout all these.
Yeah, let me like as I said, they seem to
and in between
they acknowledged to be fair to Right Stuff, or what Right Stuff noted was. They noted the attendance count or the watch count on the streams, and they just said this is the people who are listening to this right now or tuning in. This is bigger than any panel, like live panel we've done, because I think at the peak it was like 300, 400, something like that. I think that was the account for during the peak of the Right Stuff panel. Like there was like 300 easily to watch the Right Stuff panel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing for the English voice actors in discotheque, they'll probably get high numbers
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
and apparently and
Yeah.
those
Because
are
I know
those,
all of them
those
were
are very
promoting those. Like the things you promote, they should hopefully get your highest numbers.
And what is it? Just reading from my notes. The wood, just for reference, the woodblock prints that were brought up in the course of that, which are now long sold out, the Kadokawa woodblock prints.
Well, what was it? You ordered them and then they were handmade and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But they showed the video of how they were made, and
Well,
I caught a
that
bit of
would have
that. And
been
that was incredible because I saw them put up, and I'm like, well, I'd love to have that. And it's a unique item, but it's very expensive.
how
But
much
then
was
you
it?
see that video and you're
I know
like,
why, but
wow,
how much?
that's
What was the price tag? Do you remember?
I can't. It was in the hundreds of dollars American, so we would probably be talking very, very expensive.
Basically an EI check. Okay.
Probably more than an EI check.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I'm not even sure they give us free shipping because they'd want to make sure that thing properly gets to Canada in one piece, right?
Yeah. So if it's over,
I'm not sure about dropping it from the top of a warehouse.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. They talked about the protection of there. That was actually a pretty funny video.
Was that video live of them dropping it, or was that some kind of staged?
No. It was like
That was
the other ones. They
staged.
probably filmed it before, and I think that was the other thing you think of too, is them showing you how they package it. Like, kind of how these things are packaged, but you can see they put the care in, and you always see that at the end of the day, but to see it in the actual process, right?
Quick question: are they going to repackage that shot glass and sell it again?
Presumably. I would say.
Well, what was it? They talk about, remember the figures in that where they say they're the imperfect ones, and they said, oh, it's just the boxes and stuff like that, because some people want to show them off, right? In their cabinets or their cases and stuff like that, just the figures. So it's always interesting to see that, because they only recently did that with imperfect figures, I think, over the past year.
Also,
Yeah.
did anyone cringe when he opened those cases the way he opened it? I felt like he wasn't handling it properly.
I didn't catch the video for that part. I was only listening.
Like he was really manhandling that merchandise.
Yes, but they did okay with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like you said, they're expecting more for the remaining 3 marquee panels to happen: the 2 voice actors and the discotheque panel, which will happen on Sunday. The voice actors on Saturday, one after the other.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the discotheque one, and I might tune in for the Veronica Taylor panel too, because
oh, I've told that story. I've told the story of my story with her, haven't I?
yes, you have.
Okay, so I won't say it again.
Yeah,
How
she's
did they do
the OG Ash for those that are not
the OG,
familiar.
yeah, the original Ash from the original Pokemon run, and she's been to Fan Expo. So I've actually I actually moderated her Q&A at Fan Expo way back in the I think it was 2001 or 2002. She did a Q&A, and I moderated that. So I've met Veronica Taylor and her daughter, actually, who was with her at the time. Really, she was very very charming to deal with.
Oh, one more thing
yes.
thing about the Shonen Jump panel, actually.
We're just going back, and then I'll ask for James's impressions.
I'll just say that just to not make it seem like I'm just poo-pooing all over the guy, I can respect trying to do a panel to the internet and not having the most how do I put this? Like, there was clearly some technical concerns that were going on in the background, so I can always respect panelists trying to do their best in a situation like that.
I will go on. I will double down on that feeling a little later on. James, anything you want to say that stuck out to you in the course of whatever you saw today at Lockdown?
Actually, think about it, because I didn't see the end where they got to questions that and write stuff. So were they doing something? Because remember they were saying you could phone a phone number to ask questions to Discotheque. Were they doing that for right stuff too? Because that seems like interesting for a virtual convention to do, especially since we have Twitch and we have YouTube chats and Twitter and
they were acknowledging the YouTube. They were acknowledging anything that came in the chat, but there was encouragement to use the voicemail, which the phone number, if you have been watching the stream, it was constantly on the bottom of the screen, like you would see in telephone in the old days.
Yeah, like you see that and you're thinking to yourself, you're thinking of all these things and you're thinking telephone, telephone.
And they've acknowledged that Herbert and Taylor have already a lot of voicemail questions waiting for them for tomorrow. That's what they acknowledged in the opening ceremonies. James, is there anything else that you want to say stuck out to you, like any of the other panels?
Yeah, so I had a bit of time. So other than the right stuff, I saw a bit of, well, most of, except for the questions. I saw the next one, which was the weirdest anime ever, and they went through some weird ones, and that was an interesting one. That one was from a fella from Ireland and a fella from England.
I think
that did
think
it.
those
and they
are.
said, this is our first international panel or something like that. They meant it was
if I'm not mistaken, those might be said both listeners. So I see them. I think they're on the. I think they're on the one of them. At least one of them is on the SoundCloud list as a listener or something. So
I wanted
one of our said listeners.
The one that
but it was funny about the weirdest anime one is. There was one where I don't know why. Maybe it's because Vlad loved it so much and we showed it. It's like, it is weird, but I didn't feel weird compared to all the other ones. Was Dead Leaves, but maybe it's because I haven't seen Dead Leaves in a while.
Mind you, I've had Melody of Oblivion sitting in a box here for years, and I have yet to watch it. Then I saw that scene they showed from Melody of Oblivion,
and you're like, "Wait, did that actually happen in that?" It's like with the cows and all that. It's like,
what was it?
That's seriously Melody of Oblivion. That's what I was thinking when I saw
What scene was that? What scene was that?
When all the girls were mooing like cows.
They were milking them.
They were milking them. Good one. Way to go. Way to go. So that was that caught your attention. That was one of the ones that caught your attention, James.
Yes, and then there was another one I know that we talked about, and I actually got to see that one. That was the only other one I saw, which was the Otakunomics, the business world behind anime.
That was the one I wanted to listen to, but I missed out on.
Yeah, that is up your alley, James.
And he definitely said, like, he definitely had done panels, as he said, like this before, and he said it's always evolving and stuff like that. He talked about that at the end because you could tell it was a well-oiled machine, and
he was and
took the questions and stuff like that, and he said the same thing where he gave him his PowerPoint early. He's like, "Oh, it's good you were early." But then he said to him, "I was scared because you said, did you check the file I sent 20 or 30 minutes before the panel?" And stuff like that, because he constantly updates, he said, but they were okay.
No, they did.
But he said, like, his first PowerPoint had a little more flash. Then he's like, I don't want to do flash, especially because God knows what could happen on Twitch and YouTube.
His name...
Who was the presenter?
Presenter's name, was it...
One sec.
I'm trying to look it. I'm trying to look it up too because I took the name.
It is Time Enforcer Anubis.
Anubis.
Yes, Time Enforcer Anubis.
Yeah, which I've heard that name before.
That's his handle.
The handle sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, he's on Twitter. He's on Twitter. Te Anubis.
But where is he an industry person or did he just compile all this?
I think it's
he's talking to people.
Yeah, he as he admitted, he says one of his interests is business and stuff like that. So it's a bit of everything. So it's like the interest of anime and manga, I guess, and all that, and then business and stuff like that. So it goes together. Like I am in business, so I kind of in the same vein understand all these things, and I can take and see what's going on for the other, and you can go through the public records and stuff like that they are able to provide, which he said the benchmarks from the that one association, Japan for animation and stuff like that, and where the money's coming from. But
and where's the money going?
A lot of the time, as we said, we don't know the answers because it's a black box. Because remember, all these production committees, they're private and stuff like that. And most of the stuff, he was going into more of the minutia, of course, and we've touched on it before and stuff like that, bits and bytes, but he was going into it, and you could see a lot of people in the chat were getting a lot out of it.
It was quite a lot to digest, admittedly, and I'd love to. I asked them actually if there's going to be a replay of that because I'd like to see it again. Because yes, we've talked about it, but I'd like to just keep hearing it over and over because it's a fascinating. It was a fascinating panel, actually.
I'd be
Twitch they do an archive, but not like it depends on if they do a permanent archive is really the question mark.
could be
especially on YouTube
or,
and Twitch.
Yeah, let's just say that it was a never say never type scenario. I mean, the host, and I'll talk about that in a bit, but they said the guy moderating it basically said, yeah, they're open to it, but there might be a few logistics and rights issues to consider. But that was actually a very interesting panel. And then from my standpoint, the only other one that two other panels that did pop out to me as today, there was this long discussion about the criticism of film criticism. So it was like a blogger, Mark on movies, I believe he calls himself. And he talked at length about...
Because Mark McPherson is the name they have on the thing.
Yes. He just went at length about, sometimes the relationship between fans and critics, and how sometimes you can't, how they can sometimes be in disagreement with each other. But it was a really interesting discussion, and the moderator himself, whose name is JP, he was in on the discussion as well, the actual host. But I found that really well done and worth listening to. Not as anime centric, but a good listen anyway. And then there was, at the end, near the end, before we started to set up for the taping here, there was a panel about anime that takes place where the characters are post high school characters. So is
that beyond anime high school?
Beyond anime high school, anime for grown-ups. And they ended up listing.
Boko Sachi was the handle for that fellow.
Yep, 1, 2, 3. 4.
I only caught a very tiny bit, but one of the ones he mentioned, I think I might have mentioned it to you, Mike, is Space Brothers. That is a good one.
Space Brothers was
watch
the
on
second one mentioned.
Crunchyroll.
Yeah, no, most of them are on Crunchyroll.
I know it's 99 episodes, but it's for all 99.
Yeah,
and then the problem is then you have to go to the manga to get the rest of the story. So
did they talk about Nana?
No, Nana wasn't mentioned in this. Although that's not bad. That's not a bad choice either. That would fit. That would probably fit for in its own way in this list. But they went through 10 anime, and maybe we'll put that up. Maybe, or maybe you can go see them. Girlish Numbers, Space Brothers, Moyashimon, Golden Kamuy.
Wait, Moyashimon?
Mm-hmm.
That happens in a college, though, doesn't it?
Post high school.
Beyond high school.
So. Oh, fair enough.
Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. Legend of Black Heaven. Ooh, that's going old school.
Oh, yeah, he went old school for that one. Did he? Well, I think, what was it? It's on Crunchyroll, and Discotheque rescued that one.
Yeah. Kaiji and Tonegawa Middle Management Blues. Showa.
I notice a lack of there's a lack of Josei.
I know.
In that list.
I know. I see where you're going.
Hunting Clover would have been nice.
Maybe. Showa.
That would have tied in nice because it's coming out right now, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it has the proper subtitles this time, unlike Viz's.
Oh, that's wait.
Oh, yeah.
It was family name order, remember?
Actually, this title actually had my attention. Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju.
Oh, that one.
That looked interesting.
It's a good show from what I've heard.
Yeah, that sounded interesting. Kaiba and Astral Fire Sunred, which is not available anywhere.
That is an old one. That is an old Sentai. Yeah,
it's only a fan sub. That's what he said about it.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah. But it's still known.
Good. Like as I said, I let's just say I came away thinking well of the whole thing, actually, which I guess comes to my own take on the convention, and which was for something that was organized within roughly a month. So far, it isn't. You take it for what it is, and you don't try. You don't go in thinking that you're going to see a TED presentation for each of these panels, which you didn't, by the way. All you ended up seeing was more or less a static screen with the odd PowerPoint screen with the odd PowerPoints in a corner. And
you can tell there was thought put into it, stuff like that. They said they put out a call and they were surprised by how many they got, and it wasn't just people from the US. They got international, and they tried their best to find, I guess, okay, this is how many we can do, but what's the best mix? And so far, it's been an intriguing mix.
Yeah, and then what happened was, and this is sort of something that stuck out to me in the opening ceremonies. First of all, the host goes by the name JP. And he's the
And
guy
he's there for each panel too, right?
because
so that's interesting. He's kind of like a moderator and like a sounding board, and he's doing some of the PowerPoint, moving it along for them.
Yeah, he's basically the host and the lead tech guy for that, because he's taking the PowerPoints, and that's why you have the coordination of having to switch to the PowerPoints, sound guy to make sure they're coming through and all that stuff to everybody else. That guy, JP sounds like he's been quite the workhorse the entire time thus far, but it's his opening remarks that caught my attention, because he also spoke. He was also speaking like he's the guy at the center of this. He said, with all of the conventions that have been canceled, there is missed opportunities for everybody who would have been involved with them. Missed opportunities for the fans, missed opportunities for cosplayers to show off, missed opportunities for artist alleys and vendors to show off their wares, maybe make a couple dollars. They've lost their sources of income, their possible sources of income, which are precarious to start.
Oh, yeah. Cons are huge money makers for Artist Alley and for those dealers.
Those chances are not
there. Some of those probably might have relied on Diamond too, remember, because Diamond deals with them just as much as comic book stores. The pop shops, and they were down for basically a month, and they might get back up hopefully at the end of the month. But a lot of them were dealing with people that had their pull lists and stuff like that. And saying, please come get stuff, and we'll try to do curbside pickup, which has become the thing.
Yeah, and he said he wanted to fill that void. That's why he wanted to do this. So when they put out the call, maybe it's not much, but maybe everybody who comes in won't be able to make much, but they get some much needed exposure and goodwill for going forward. Whatever vendors, I think there's only half a dozen, but at least they get their names out there. They got curiosity and can make a couple connections. Same with the people who did the Artist Alley. Now, as I said, the layout was a little bit fractious because they actually made the joke about this being about the lack of hotels, because if you want to use the whole convention venue as a metaphor, a convention setup as a whole metaphor, the Twitch and YouTube streams are the panel rooms. The Discord, because this was on Discord as well. Discord was basically the rest of the hotel, so that's where the Artist Alley and vendors were. And if you had to talk to con ops, they had chat lines there. It's all chat lines. And then if you want to promote something like a blog or a podcast, which I did, you can do that as well. Actually, and there have been some well-known names who have been perusing there. You mentioned the guys from Ireland. They do a podcast. Surat's been chatting up a storm in there in both the Twitch streams and on Discord. And Mike Toole, much the same. No, Mike Toole has a reason. I think he's talking on Sunday. So,
the Discotheque, him and Justin Savakis, and then Brady Hartel stuff.
So you're seeing some names who are perusing that area. But as I said, JP caught my attention with some of the stuff he said at the very beginning. He also said, in these times, yes, we're not in it for the money, but you probably would want to donate to something, right? We're not going to ask you to donate to anybody in particular. If you have money to donate, you have money to give, keep it home. Keep it at home. Donate to your local charities. Or if you must insist on doing it here, help out our vendors, help out people by purchasing items at with the vendors in the Artist Alley. And it was his opening words that kind of struck with me. And I understand where he was coming from. I really respected what he said in all of that, in that opening speech. So for that's why I want to give this cut a lot of slack for this, because this is like uncharted territory right now. And as I said, it may set a blueprint for the way things will have to be handled in the next little while in this quote unquote brave new world. And we're hearing rumors now. Are any of the other well-known conventions planning something on some sort of programming online now? Am I hearing something like that? Are we hearing like San Diego Comic-Con or Anime North?
I wouldn't be surprised, or sometimes they might use stuff they've had maybe from previous years, because wasn't it Lollapalooza and stuff like that did like a stream everyone could watch, and it was previous Lollapaloozas and stuff like that they were streaming footage and stuff like that for free. So that instead of having the event, they basically had all the other events, and people seemed to really.
I mean, you're seeing all
that. So I could see a part of that, and then new stuff depending on if they have the tech capabilities, and that's a part of it because we have seen it before, but they have been live on location and stuff like that, and they have more control and stuff like that. Whereas this, there's a little less control because they're in very different geographical areas sometimes, even. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And then to that, well, you're hearing virtual concerts and talk shows taking place remotely, like episodes of late night talk shows and, you know, The View and The Social, those afternoon talk shows, they're taking place virtually. Concerts, same thing. Essentially, essentially that trend has happened here with at least an anime convention, and it could happen again. We're seeing it again with movies too. Well, actually, let's touch on that in a couple seconds.
Watch parties and that.
Watch parties, what have you. Overwatch is now strictly played online. We've talked about that. Let's not talk any more about that, at least tonight.
Valorant?
I just don't know how that works with video games, because you talk about all the people worried about lag and input and all that stuff, and you just add so many.
Ultimately, the teams have to play in the same vicinity, in the same region, so that they can play on the same server without the lag issue, without the lag worries.
Just imagine if you had to play real sports like that, like hit the baseball to the next country over.
Well, I'm sure there's been jokes about that. As I said, because of that, the Overwatch League presently is kind of divided. 13 of the 20 teams are in North America, have set up bases in North America. The remaining 7 are actually in Korea. So, and the league matches are all playing against each other in those clusters. Anyway, that's another story altogether.
And then there's Evo 2, and that'll be interesting to see how that goes on too.
No, well, as I said,
didn't they cancel Evo?
They did cancel Evo, but they're doing some sort of online thing, or somehow they're going to do it. But I'm not sure how they're going to take into account, of course, as we talk about lag and latency and all that stuff.
Okay.
If they do decide to do something, or it's not going to be quite the same as what it was.
You know it's going to happen to somebody.
Let's give a last thought, though. Evo. Well, I mean, tell me about it later. I mean, okay, so before we finish up tonight, let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that people could be handling this. Streaming. Not necessarily in the Netflix, in the mainstream senses that we know for both anime and just generally speaking, like Netflix or Crunchyroll, Funimation, here in Canada, Crave, and Amazon Prime. But just other means by which people have been able to see movies. There's been this controversy surrounding Trolls World Tour and premium video on demands. Okay, do you want to say something? I saw you shake your head. Is there something you want to mention concerning that? Because I know that's been a big issue over the last week.
It's just like the escalation from we released this movie because it's a pandemic and we had to no longer allowed to show your movies in our movie theaters.
Oh, I thought that was a little yeah.
I mean, it's like if you're not invited to someone's party one time, you don't then just. It's just too much.
Do you think? Well, first of all, do you think AMC is being a bit childish in this scenario?
100%.
Okay, thank you.
100%.
Thank you.
I mean, we have no idea what the movie landscape is going to be like in a year's time, give or take. But by preemptively saying Universal can't show a movie, like Universal has the Fast and Furious series coming out next year. They have major multi-billion-dollar blockbusters that are going to come out. If a movie theater is saying it's going to be all like, nah, you know what? We don't want your money anymore. You guys are allowed to. I mean, come on.
Well, the thing is,
shoot themselves in the foot.
Maybe, and maybe the.
Or like you shot yourself in the face with a shotgun.
But the studios are and the sad part is, I'm not certain they're in a position of power. The studios are willing to go that route if forced, at least, right?
Like right now, as it stands, the studios have all the power. If I'm a movie theater chain or a movie theater at all, I would be doing whatever I can to curry favor with whoever possible. Because like you saw the success of Trolls 2, that just means that it's doable. It's possible. I mean,
yeah, the precedent has been set.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
You saw that Cineplex here is obviously pivoted and stuff like that because remember they had their online stuff, and so they've definitely
they've had
pivoted even more
to go
with their online stuff and
yeah.
things like that.
They've had to go a little
Oh,
bit
I know
more in
they're
that
still in
sense.
big trouble because remember they were in the middle of a takeover and they had to meet certain financial goalposts and stuff like that, and that's been put all out of whack and stuff like that. And they also had to go through some government regulation that's been put all out of whack and stuff like that.
Yeah, I see.
Who knows what's going to happen to Cineplex?
Well, first of all, that's another question altogether. We have to get out of where we are first. That all said, anime-wise, and I want to give a final thought in terms of the anime stuff. Movies have been showing on YouTube. I mean, over the last week or so, I think the Eva Rebuild movies were on YouTube. Although it was really only a benefit if you were a native Japanese speaker, because any translations were loose at best. And I think some Otomo movies were also being streamed. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. But there's been some options to see anime not through the traditional means, and some interesting titles. We mentioned Kevin and I mentioned last night, or we didn't mention to anyone out there, but over the last week, the Japan Foundation here in Toronto, in association with the JCCC, have offered a free screening of Napping Princess, the 2017 feature. 2017, right? I think it was 2017.
I believe so. That was another one of G-Kid's ones too, because G-Kids has done a few of their non-Ghibli stuff and have put them out to different streaming things and stuff like that, and different events and stuff like that. I've seen it for that one. Oko's in. What was that other one? There was another one in
Penguin Highway.
Penguin Highway was offered.
Highway.
Penguin Highway was offered last night.
Oh,
yes,
for only 24 hours.
And they were also charging $5 for that one too.
Yes, whereas Napping Princess was for free actually for 1 week, whereas in the case of Penguin Highway, it was just yesterday, only yesterday, really. And
I know they've definitely pivoted too. It's like if you're looking at the non-free ones. Remember we talked about Promare and stuff like that, and they were going to do. That's a weird one because they were going to do another in-theater event and stuff like that for that. It got thrown out. And then to celebrate the digital release instead, they said, okay, anyone who has bought our digital release, which is happening before the physical next month, not next month, this month, basically, they were going to do a streaming price for all those who owned it, and they were going to have some of the English voice actors. So supposedly that was an interesting event and stuff like that.
It does
interesting way to promote it.
Yes. Well, it does lead me to one other alternative, and this is not to be, and this may sound dickish because it is a free alternative to have seen a lot of these. Certainly, Sleeping Princess and Penguin Highway. Those are G-Kids movies. Those are. Penguin Highway was offered for a $5 donation to the JCCC, and which came and went. But certain parts of the G-Kids library are also available literally in a library, digitally at your public library through Hoopla. If you have a library card, you can tie that to Hoopla digital account, because a lot of the libraries use that service. And you might be able to at least watch a stream of certainly Penguin Highway and Sleeping Princess. Those were listed on the Hoopla website to be able to watch to borrow the movie for 72 hours to watch, which I found kind of intriguing. Yeah, and yes, Promare is actually listed on Hoopla, so you can actually watch that, assuming you have a library card a library card with a library that is signed on to the Hoopla service. The thing about Hoopla is it's free for any of us as a user, but I think they charge the library, and because of that, the library limits the number of loans you can make on Hoopla per month. In the case of Toronto Public Library, a Hoopla member access with a Toronto Public Library card, you only get eight loans a month. And I presume something like that will. And I looked at. I was looking up the Mississauga library. They're on Hoopla as well, but I presume you'll have a limited number of loans as well if you want to use it. And there's some interesting movies already on that. If you're a fan of Donnie Yen's portrayal of Ip Man, the original three Ip Man movies are there, and recently they added the fourth one, which was out a few months ago, and I think it's one of the first places to be able to see it digitally in North America. So that's there on Hoopla Digital. So there's one final option that I'm not totally sure how many would know about that. And looking at the library, it's an interesting library. A lot of mainstream movies, a lot of art house movies, a lot of foreign films that you wouldn't easily see, and that might be worth a look-see for anybody. Well, whatever number of people will actually hear this. But there's a personal suggestion from me. But you have a thought?
They've been opening up the vaults, as they say, right?
Well, what do you think? I mean, I thought I haven't watched anything on Hoopla yet, but I'm gonna save. I'm probably gonna watch it, man, because I was a fan of the movies.
Have you seen it?
I'm all for free legal.
It's free legal.
I'm always up for free legal.
It's a free legal. That's the thing. I don't know how good the service actually is, but hey, free legal, right? So
yep.
As long as you can get it up here in Canada, because you never know, right?
Right. Well, that's
like
about
all those geo-blocking or geo-restrictions.
Okay, well, anyway, that's my thought, and I think we're almost done because we've been sitting here recording for more than 2 hours now, I think.
Time has just flown by.
So has the 7 weeks in quarantine or lockdown or whatever.
I thought we agreed 42 weeks.
Sorry, Kevin.
You know what was nice though? So 2 or 3 weeks ago, Faku was offering 2 weeks free.
Didn't they offer another week free and they extended it? And they killed their site the first day. And of course
there's
they did.
There's punchlines here, aren't there? Actually,
they got reamed.
You know why I feel they did it? Like, wasn't Pornhub doing that because Pornhub always does stupid,
that's kind of like
silly things like that? That's kind of like
they did, and they do it occasionally too, where they do free weekends or whatever.
I think it's actually streaming time.
Yes, I've just outed myself, but in any case,
but I don't think Faku's ever done that before, has they?
Actually, we're going to talk about this a little bit more at length, I think, in the next episode.
What, Pornhub?
Just generally speaking, like all the little offers that have happened in the whole that have happened during the whole virus pandemic.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, Mike, we're not that kind of podcast.
No, but we make fun of it a lot.
Remember, don't forget, Kevin, you can't just see that on Faku. You can buy their skateboards and stuff like that are very respectable, or you can buy the great stuff from Dempa.
Well, let's talk a little.
Oh, yeah.
Let's save this, because I know there's other stuff we want to talk about, but we know we have to save that for a future episode. But hey, if the House of Commons here in Canada can use Zoom,
oh God,
as long as it remembers to hit the unmute button.
Suppose I was reading an article about people were judging their backgrounds and stuff like that, and what was going on, and there were some interesting questions. One person had a drape or whatever for privacy, and they said, that doesn't look good. It looks like you're probably hiding a dead body behind you.
And somebody had the green
screen. Or you have
something
to hide.
Why not just turn on your virtual background? I mean, I feel like you're in Zoom anyways. Just turn it off.
Yeah, I know. And you're still sitting inside Seinfeld's apartment. I can tell.
I mean,
Mohammed.
Kramer's over there.
I think no one used any of those Zoom backgrounds. Well, actually, one guy used a green screen in the House of Commons. They said that's just asking for someone to screw with you.
Yeah, there was somebody with
a
green screen.
Because, like, knowing how old most of those people are,
most of MPs, right?
I don't think they would have been able to have figured it out anyway.
Navdi Bain seemed like he was going all in there, with that painted behind him. Like, I think he's just like, I'm going to show everyone up, and now we're just wondering about him.
But if you're the Minister of Innovation, you should know a little bit more. It's
like, I'm just trying to think. It's like, well, which
I mean,
which one is he in the picture of all the turbines? Because like they're multicolored. It's like crazy, that picture. Oh my goodness.
it was sad. Like, but you're right. Go to your point. He sort of knows what he's doing. It's like in Japan, there was recently a technology minister who admitted he didn't own a computer and didn't know how to use it.
And they were talking about that with telecommuting and stuff like that, where a lot of them don't have PCs that can actually do what we're doing right here and don't understand it. Like the best way they said they could get these people to telecommute is through their phones. Their phones are more powerful and better than some of what they have on computers.
But
because remember, space is another thing too.
But having the computer is still a good thing in many respects too.
Agreed.
So, as I said, this is our first episode on Zoom, or let's see how the editing goes on me. Hopefully, well, I got time to do it, I suppose. So I'll try to get it out.
The good thing is we didn't get Zoom bombed either, right?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sort of disappointed, actually.
Oh, man.
Yeah, my sentiments exactly, Mo.
Because we understand the technology. I know everyone is still trying to figure that one out too, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I said, it was nice to do this episode, like to finally do a regular episode again and to actually do this online, because we've been wanting to do something online. But it also means that maybe we can churn out the next episode in relatively short order, certainly not a month down the road or a month and a half. I think that was the case between this episode and, well, the episode 17 that we'd rather not talk about too much longer. What the hell did we know back then? The hell
between this and the next episode, we're going to set a land speed record, huh?
No, I think we could maybe we can go at least do the next episode within a week or two.
Sometimes having a shoot the shit episode is fine.
Yeah.
Well, that's been the story of version 2 up until this point, I think. But opening up the online door will open up hopefully a few more possibilities. So hopefully in time we can take advantage of it. And as I said, finally we're in the 2010s as well. I guess that's it, though. I think, as I said, we've been, more than 2 hours already? We need to sleep. I do want, I don't know who would finish first, us or Anime Lockdown. I think Lockdown finished before we did tonight.
There should still be a panel going on right now.
Somebody check.
Nope, Horror and Pokemon
until what time?
Started.
Oh, it just started?
It just started. It's going from 12:30 to 1:30.
Oh God, who would have thunk? Okay, cool. Well, maybe I'll check that out, or maybe I'll just start the editing, because heavens knows this will take a little while.
Is anybody else looking forward to any specific panels
tomorrow over the next 2 days? Oh yeah, I guess going back to Lockdown. Well, I think for most people it's the discotheque on Sunday. It's the discotheque panel on Sunday. I mean, the voice actors I've always taken a personal interest in. I mean, I've mentioned that before. So, Herbert and Herbert. Yeah. Kyle Herbert goes at 3:30. Mm-hmm. Veronica Taylor goes at 5 p.m. tomorrow, online. No point in putting a link, because by the time we put this episode up, chances are good possibility that Anime Lockdown will be over.
I don't know, Mike. I don't know.
We'll see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I might try and check out Anime Burger Time, because chances are that's Evan Minto's panel, and I might check out the Real Robot panel too to see if that's any good. On top of going to the discotheque panel.
Well, the voice actors will have my attention for sure. And
yeah, I might.
As I said,
I might go see our Veronica Taylor's too.
As I said, reading some of this, reading some of the titles of these panels, they would have a handful of them certainly
would have. Just to let you know, Kevin, that is Evan Minto's panel. If you go to the descriptions,
okay. As I said, reading the list of these panels, they could have fit at Anime North easily. So something to look forward to. And as I said, let's see how we handle the Brave New World next time. I think when we gather, when the roundtable here gathers virtually, let's talk a little bit more about the stuff we have been a little bit more about some of the stuff we've been watching. I'll certainly talk at the very least about the books and the shows that I've actually watched, because I want to elicit a few reactions, just and thoughts of everything we've all been a little bit more on the stuff we've been reading and watching.
I might want to go over some of the panels I attended as well in the next 2 days.
A follow up on the latter parts of lockdown, right? Of anime lockdown. Yeah. And for me, I want to actually watch a couple more shows since I've gotten a few more suggestions. I actually want to read Otokoi, since that's on.
Otokoi is great.
That's on Amazon, and I have access to Amazon. I haven't had a chance to watch that yet, but as I said, I finished up a light novel too, and I want to talk a little bit about.
Yeah, and Otokoi,
to read a light novel after reading 4
manga
novels.
as well.
Huh? Which one? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading the manga right now.
Mm-hmm. But
it's an omnibus and it's great. And it should be in the library too. I can't remember if they have the digital one or not, because they
I have to. For me, it's just let's see, anything to get me going, and then.
But that one, the anime is just so on point, stuff like that. Just playing Mario Kart, that one scene. Oh my goodness!
Well,
you just I actually don't know about this.
Okay,
I don't think I know about this.
Let's talk about that later on. Let's talk about that in coming weeks. Okay, I think we got a chance. Anyway, like I said, maybe we should learn a little bit more. Watch and observe what else happens in the next little while. Heavens knows, for many of us, at least I certainly have the time, and I guess you guys have a little bit more too, to various degrees. Hang in there, James. I know it's busy for you at work. Anyway, I guess that's it.
I guess so.
Anything else you want to add before we say goodnight?
No, it was pretty much just me wanting to bring up Faku, but that was otherwise it.
As I said, there's a punchline there. Trust me, it's not just there.
The time is long gone there, literally and figuratively, as they say.
The punchline isn't
You're
just
paying now.
And I think we'll stick around for the punchlines next time.
The time had come, and so did I.
Good night from Toronto. Join us again for another edition of the Anime Roundtable.